All right, go ahead, Nicole. You got this.
All right, welcome to our presentation on our behavior change project. We are Allie, Nicole, Kimani, Michaela, Taylor, and Sarah. An overview of what we are going to present is a literature review. We will describe the purpose of our study. We'll go into the details of the methods, the results that we came up with, our conclusions, some limitations to our study, and our references. The literature review will be a review of the original article, and then Michaela, Kimani, and Allie and Sarah will go into details on their literature review.
All right, so the original article is Reducing Problematic Social Media Use via a Package Intervention. So for the introduction, the researchers talk about social media being defined as a website or application that allows users to share information, ideas, videos, and other content electronically. There's been a notice in an increase with social media usage amongst young adults, and it has caused sleep disturbances, distracted driving, and other life imbalances. One of the behavioral interventions used is contingency management that is used to decrease that type of addiction. For the methods section, the participants were 9 undergrad students between the ages 18 to 25, all but 2 were female. Social media usage was monitored by their phones and computers. They utilized a modified internet addiction test with a score set of 31 or higher, and a behavior allocation survey where the participants had to pick up to 3 alternative activities. They utilized a multiple baseline design and broke it up into 3 groups, one group going through a withdrawal phase. And there was compensation involved, where the group participants would get $5 Amazon gift card for completed demographic surveys, $1 a day after submitting screenshots within a 24-hour period, and they could earn up to $10 a day if they proved to be consistent. For the results, each participant earned between $87 to $192. It was proven to be effective, the interventions, with decreased social media usage, 91.8% of the days below the target goal, compared to the 27.4% during pre-baseline and baseline. Some of the top 3 chosen activities were schoolwork, reading, and exercising. Some of the discussions, the study results supported the daily duration of social media use decreased in the implementation of contingency management. 8 out of the 9 participants had lower scores on the internet addiction test post-intervention. Some limitations were that there was not enough male participants, and possibility that there was participants screenshotting others' social media usage, and some future research to explore would be methods for maintaining lower daily social media usage durations.
Okay, so the next literature review I did on the social media use in mental health. In the introduction, they discussed how social media has become very popular in adolescents and young adults in recent years. There have been concerns addressed regarding social media and how it could impact young adults and adolescents negatively. It goes on to say that these concerns include how youth and young adults overuse social media, interact in real life interactions. If youth and young adults do not interact with others, it could lead to loneliness, isolation, and even a decrease in empathy. The purpose of this study was to see if an overuse of social media and ideas shared on social media could lead to mental health disorders and even suicidal ideations. So some of the methods, all of the participants were undergraduate students. There were around 500 participants with an average age of 19. They all attended the same university, and they filled out a questionnaire addressing things like time spent on social media, mental health symptoms, social support at home, time spent face-to-face with friends. So the results indicated that there wasn't some of the social media variables were not necessarily predictors of negative mental health outcomes. These results were listed as regression equations. This also included vague booking. Vague booking is described as like posting something in hopes for like a dramatic response, and this slightly predicted loneliness and suicidal thoughts. Results were consistent with previous works suggesting how social media use does not necessarily correlate with mental health problems. So it's still being questioned if social media usage as a whole is responsible for mental health problems. And again, vague booking was a prediction of loneliness. This could be perceived as like a cry for help for someone who has prior mental health problems. But again, social media does not necessarily correlate with mental health problems.
So I did my literature review on the effect of social media use on learning, social interactions, and sleep duration among university students. In the introduction, it discussed that they aim to examine the duration of time spent on social media, the purpose of the social media platform used, sleep duration, the impact of social media on academics, and the relationships that the participants have, like with their family and friends. With the methods, the study took place at a university in Saudi Arabia. 300 full-time female participants ranging from the age of 17 to 29. Data was collected for this study via a questionnaire that was translated from English to their primary language in Saudi Arabia. And the study took place for about 4 months, from September to December of 2019. The results, 290 of the 300 students reported using social media applications. 35% use social media to chat with others, and the 43% use social media to browse sites to pass time. Discussion, 39% to 45% of the participants stated that they slept fewer than the recommended 7 to 9 hours due to social media usage. Excessive use of social media can lead to increased sitting durations and lower physical activity levels.
Okay, so my article was using the use of social media and how it's associated with short sleep duration in a dose response manner in students ages 11 to 20 years old. So basically the introduction outlines how sleep is essential to development and daily functioning. A lot of children who have deficits in sleep have both poor mental health and typically less active habits. There have been many suggestions that the use of technology, specifically social media, has been impacting the sleep duration, especially in our younger populations. So the purpose of this study was to determine if there was, in fact, a correlation between sleep duration and the use of social media. The way they collected this data was from a survey, the Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey, obviously across Canadians. They surveyed several thousand, but only 5,242 responded back. And so that was the data used to compare. And that survey has many questions related to health and drug use, as well as internet use, social media use. But this study only took the questions that applied to social media and sleep duration. And also part of the methods was comparing them to normal sleep averages as well. So the results of the study showed that only about 63.6% of participants had a lower sleep duration than the recommended average for their age, which is pretty big. So like most of the population, children are not sleeping. 73.4% of the students reported that they use social media for at least an hour a day. I think it was 20.5% reported 4+ hours a day, which is crazy. And so once the covariates were adjusted, the use of social media was associated with an overall sleep duration, or an overall shorter sleep duration. And the discussion kind of talks about how blue light has been shown to suppress melatonin production. And that's why that's one of the mechanisms that kind of governs the relationship between sleep and social media, which is blue light suppressing melatonin and direct displacement of time. So the more time you spend on social media, the less time you are sleeping. And then the conclusion was that an increased social media duration does in fact correlate with a shorter sleep duration.
Okay,
So my article was investigating the impact of social media on employees' well-being and productivity. So some researchers have argued that using social media while at work can decrease employee productivity and engagement. And it's also argued that using social media at work can blur the line between professional and personal boundaries. So the methods used: 14 employees working at IT companies in India were chosen to be interviewed using open-ended question. And the average age for these employees was 32.5 years old. And they used an interpretive phenomenological analysis, which essentially just means that they take the statements made by the participants and they sort those statements into themes. And they also double check with the participants to make sure that their statements were categorized into the correct theme. So the 5 themes included lack of sleep, backache and eye strain, feeling envy, lack of depth in relationships, and tendency to seek approval. And the themes for productivity included not meeting deadlines, compromise of work quality, and distraction from work. And the interesting thing is that the 3 themes, which were lack of depth in relationships, compromise of work quality, and distraction from work, almost all of the participants agreed that social media greatly impacted these themes. So while social media can be useful for quicker communication, a form of entertainment, it can also lead to decreased productivity during work, and it can also decrease the well-being of employees, such as affecting their mental health.
All right, and so the purpose of the project, so social media addiction is a familiar topic in today's society. There's not many empirical supported treatments to curb that addiction. So the study aims to decrease social media usage among 6 graduate students through the use of social media limitation apps and the behavior allocation survey. So we tested effectiveness of digital application timers and reminders of usage. And then we also followed 3 alternative behaviors through the behavior allocation survey in place of social media usage.
All right, so the methods for our replication of the original study are as follows. We had 6 participants, all who were enrolled in the online master's degree with Ball State University for their applied behavior analysis master's. None of the participants knew each other prior to this study. The age range for our participants was 22 to 31 years old, and there were 2 qualifications that the participants had to follow. One was that they had to have access to internet and social media apps, and then 2 was that they wanted to be willing to reduce their social media usage. For materials, the participants had to have social media apps on their phones. We focused on phones and not computers or tablets because all of the participants made it clear that they did not access social media via tablets or computers. For the behavior definition, social media for our group was defined as any instance in which a participant used a smartphone to access an application or website that allowed users to share information, ideas, pictures, videos, or other content electronically. Examples of social media included Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, and non-examples were Google, Wikipedia, Bing, Netflix, any streaming service. Prior to conducting the intervention, each participant took 2 different tests or surveys. So the first was the internet addiction test. This was, we took a modified version in which we replaced any word that said internet with social media. And the whole goal was that we took this test and then we wanted to look at reducing our score. So while the internet addiction test gave scores that were, in their opinions, range to be high, we just based it on our personal opinions and what we wanted our scores to be lowered to. Our scores ranged from 14 to 42 with a maximum possible score of 100 and the lowest score being 0. Following the completion of the study, all of us will take the test again to compare our results and look at the effectiveness of the intervention. We also took a behavior allocation survey in which each participant completed the survey as a self-report of their approximate duration that they engaged in daily activities outside of social media. So this could be reading, schoolwork, going on walks, time with friends, time with families, anything like that. Prior to completing starting the intervention, each participant was asked to select 3 activities that they were interested in using as a replacement for time spent on social media.
So here we're talking about the data collection. Data was collected via digital well-being for Android users, and for iPhone users, it was collected via screen time. Each participant tracked their data by creating their own data collection sheet, and data was collected 3 to 4 times a week. The design, we did a multiple baseline design, and it was created to ensure effectiveness of reduction of social media. The baseline data was created for a minimum of 7 days in order for participants to create, in order for, for participants to show a decreasing trend for 3-point data in order for them to move into the treatment phase. A treatment phase checklist was created to ensure integrity was maintained throughout the entire study. And 5 of the participants scored 100% for each biweekly checklist.
For our study, we conducted IOA and treatment integrity throughout the duration of our intervention. For our IOA, each person, either who had an iPhone or an Android, has specific apps on their phone that collect data on the amount of time that participants are spending on social media. So on these apps, each participant could set their personal limit of how long they wanted to be allowed to spend on social media. And once they met that limit, this app would then give them a reminder that their time or their allotted time was up. So we took screenshots, each participant took screenshots of their screen time apps and sent them to the group for the previous day. Our IOA was said to be 100% because the screen time app and the downtime app on iPhone and Androids were at 100%. We also took a treatment integrity checklist throughout the survey or throughout the intervention. We completed this survey bi-weekly, and on the side here, you can see an example of what the treatment integrity checklist looked like. It just asked simple questions such as, I have a screen time limit set on my phone, I have filled out the behavior allocation survey, and then each person was responsible for calculating their percentage of treatment integrity.
Okay, so this is the graph for group 1, which included Allie, Nicole, and Taylor. As you can see, the average and the range for each participant decreased between the baseline and intervention phases. And for group
So for group 2, it was very similar to each baseline average decreased in intervention, or each average decreased in intervention, and each range also decreased in intervention for group 2, which is Sarah, Kamani, and Michaela.
So overall, as we said before, the group average for the social media decreased during the intervention phase, and that decreased for both groups. However, during the withdrawal phase for one participant, the average social media actually increased from above baseline levels. So, social media usage can lead to decreased sleep, productivity, and overall well being when it's used in excess amounts. And adding a time limit to social media apps such as Instagram and Facebook, it can help reduce the amount of time that someone spends on those apps. However, additional research is needed on if reducing social media usage increases sleep and productivity and well-being, or if it simply just means that the person's spending less time on social media. And although time limits can help decrease social media usage, based off of the withdrawal phase for one participant, time limits may need to remain in place to maintain the lower levels of social media usage. And more research is needed with participants going through withdrawal phase in order to see the effects of a time limit. Allie, you're still muted.
I'm so sorry, guys. I was literally talking to myself. Okay, back. Let me start over. So, every study has a few limitations. Some of ours were the first to start off was the internet addiction test, as well as the behavior allocation survey. They are both self-reporting tests. So obviously with any self-reporting test, there's an obvious personal or subconscious bias there. Also, we trusted the data relayed by the phone to be accurate. We kind of bypassed the confidence check. We didn't stopwatch our screen reporting time. So, there could obviously be some skew in our data in that respect and the recording measurement there, as well as screen time limitations. They're super easy to go over. I think if there was maybe a procedure that allowed you to take a 10-minute break after you got that notification, I think it would have been more successful in keeping that data down. And then we did choose to exclude all of our computer social media time. We decided as a group that we didn't use our computers for social media, but I think every once in a while we could sneak in there, and so you never know if that was truly accurate there. And then another interesting fact that I found out while reading both this article and then the article that I reviewed was that female students, well, females in general, have a higher social media usage, and we are a study of all females. So there's a very high potential that our data could have been a lot higher for that reason. And then obviously there's always the potential for, there's always the potential for someone editing the screenshots and reflecting untrue data as well. So yeah, those are our limitations. And here are our references. Okay. I am going to stop the recording now.